Good afternoon, everybody. It's Harlem Week, which is really Harlem Month, which is really Harlem 365, as Lloyd Williams likes to tell us. But I wanted to come by and just talk to you a little bit, especially about the economy. I've now been controller for 19 months. Many of you have known me a long time. I just want to let you know the money is still in the bank. I didn't bring it with me. It's okay. And actually, the city is, I think, at a very interesting place, and I just want to talk about that a little bit. Then I want to talk about a little tech stuff. But you know, one of the things that we're seeing as we look at the fiscal condition of the city and the city's 4-year financial plan, we are actually doing very well. We're going to put out an economic quarterly for tomorrow that shows that unemployment is dropping in every borough. We've never had more money in the city right now, so there's a lot of money that the mayor has by way of surplus and being able to do things. And some people think, well, okay, we are not in crisis, we're okay. And some people think it's easier to govern when you have a lot of money, right? But I actually think it's very hard. Because when you think about all the crises we've been through, when you think about 9/11 and the Sandy hurricane and the Great Recession, we have very short amount of time when the economy is good to do big things. And we don't get many years to do big things. We really get just this moment in time. And I think right now in the city, our economy is about a peace dividend that we have to take very seriously. How are we going to invest this peace dividend into our communities? How are we going to make things lasting? And I would say to you, as it relates to the economy, there's basically a couple things we must do very well. The first is we have got to raise the minimum wage. It's got to be $15 an hour. We got to do it now. Governor Cuomo has a great start, but this is critical for our people, because when you raise the wage to a reasonable paycheck, you get to invest that money into communities that cry out for investment. And the second thing you have to do is you must start to recognize that the future of this city, the best way to bring people together, to deal with issues of income inequality, is we have to invest in women and minority-owned businesses, right? This is just, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I want to tell you why. The city buys $18 billion worth of goods and services every year, right? We buy paper clips, pencils, we hire law firms, insurance companies. Of that $18 billion, 4% of that spend goes to women and minority-owned businesses. I mean, think about that. Now imagine if we changed that around and we invested in all people and women and allowed that kind of mentorship, public-private partnership. Do you know what would happen? In all of our communities, these businesses were hired locally. They would create their own brand in communities, and we would be able to finally achieve some parity among people. So you got to raise the wage. We got to invest in women and minority-owned businesses. And finally, on a larger issue, we have got to finally make it clear to corporate America that diversity is not just about civil rights. It's about strengthening your company. And I know this now more than ever because as a fiduciary of a $160 billion pension fund, 4th largest in America, 12th largest in the world, I protect the retirement security for 700,000 people, cops, firefighters, teachers, city workers. And we invest in 3,500 companies. And the companies that make me worry the most are the companies that are not diverse. Fortune 500 companies, 18% of women are on those boards. You know the statistics on black and brown. These companies are too male, they're too pale, and I hate this part, and I admit it, they're too stale, right? Because it's about groupthink. If you go to the same country club, if you grow up in the same place in Connecticut, right? If you look alike and act alike, then there's no balance on boards. That's what got us in trouble with Enron and WorldCom. So we must change that because we want to invest our pension dollars in companies that get it. And by having diversity, that means the next generation is going to have real mentorship up the corporate ladder. That is why, for the first time, in the 19 months I've been controller, we've launched a proxy access campaign. We went company to company demanding, through resolution, that they allow for owners of shares to actually run directors of companies. It's called proxy access, and we are winning this fight throughout the country. New York City retirement system, New York City Common, CalSTRS, we have put together a coalition of pension funds from all over this country, and we've actually had elections. Enron, we got 49%. Prudential voluntarily said share owners will be able to run directors, which means that we now will have, in many of these companies, greater opportunity to scrutinize over 3 issues: diversity, excess CEO pay, and the whole issue of climate change. This has never happened before, and you should know about it, because this is how we drive our economy. Minimum wage, MWB investment, changing corporate America at this time in our history. And lastly, you can't do all this without having a discussion about our children. And that means a lot to me. You know, many of you know me a long time, but now I'm not the young guy on the block now. I'm 55 years old. 50 years old, you start getting the AARP card in the mail. Some of the young people saying, oh man, we got to hear about this. But now I have a 3.5-year-old and a 2-year-old, 2 boys. That's right. When I'm in church and I say that, people go, amen. You know? And these kids, these babies, like every other child, their whole economic future is going to be different. First of all, we're going to be in a global economy. When I was growing up in Washington Heights, my mother said, remember, just get a J-O-B, right? Everyone's mom said it, just get a job. She still says, maybe you should try to get a job. But that's thank you, man. But they say, but now it's a global economy. So the way we prepare our kids is it's the high-tech economy. Make no mistake, the kids today are going to be learning in a whole different way. And they have to prepare for jobs in this high-tech economy. Whoever or whatever government, whatever city access those jobs, they're going to win. So here's what we got to do for our kids. We have got to give them a real arts education program. We did a study that showed that 400 schools in New York City don't have a certified arts teacher. Think about that today. We did this report, and much to Mayor de Blasio's credit and the DOE, we got the money from the council, and we started hiring certified arts teachers. We worked with Lincoln Center and said, let's create partnership. But we've got to give kids in central Brooklyn and the South Bronx the same education other kids in different zip codes get, because arts education, to me, right, some people thought, well, that was rounding you out. Remember, you got to be rounded out, so you got to know about art. Today, it's about high tech. We got to hire science teachers in the science curriculum, because if we don't do that, our kids are going to be out of the 21st century economy. And we have got to support community-based organizations and classrooms like I went to at CUNY that say to kids, you can learn this discipline. It's not just for the kids who have a lot. It's about kids being able to access their brain and be powered by this economy. So whether it's Google or Alphabet, you know, I don't get, you know, whatever. That's above my pay grade. But it's about making sure that our children are ready for this economy. It really matters. And part of what the government of the city has to do with the peace dividend, we have got to wire up this city. Kids today, the next generation, if I may, are learning differently than we. When we were Lloyd Williams' age, right? He was starting out. He aspired to the corner office, and he got it. But the kids today want to work on laptops. They want to create. They want to invent. They want to collaborate. They don't want to be walled off. They don't want to work in the central business district of Manhattan. They want opportunity in the Bronx and Queens and Staten Island. They want to be able to bike to work. They want to be able to have a new quality of life. And if we don't provide it to them, they will not come here as immigrants, and they will not stay here. And if we do not figure this out as the older generation, we will lose this amazing opportunity to educate our public school kids and also to once again recreate our city. A city that speaks 170 different languages from 200 countries. We market. Silicon Valley, maybe they do hardware, right? But we've got the brand. Our kids have it. They've got the attitude, the savoir-faire. They've got what I miss growing up in Washington Heights. They have a sense of self, and we want to export what they have because they're New Yorkers. But they need the tools, they need the high-tech commitment, and they need business to recognize that diversity in this city is the fountain that will grow business throughout the world. And that is why I wanted to come here today, because this technology conference, this economic development day, is about serious consequences for the city. You can't have a Harlem week or a Harlem month or a discussion in our black and brown communities without talking about real business, real technology, real educational opportunity for our kids. You go to public school around the corner here, if you don't have a wired school, if you don't have arts education, if you don't have a science teacher, if you don't have the tools, then you can't win this next battle. And our obligation is to do that. Lastly, growing up in Washington Heights back in the 70s, many of you remember that time period. We didn't have a lot, right? We didn't have developers and bankers. When they had the Citibank card back in the day, we didn't have a bank that had a card. We only learned that when we were older, right? When you could take money out with a card. We all had bank books, right? With no money in them. So we were the last to get everything, right? Because no one even knew where Washington Heights is. And today, we still have communities like that. We still have communities like the South Bronx, no coincidence. They're the ones who get Legionnaire's disease, because that doesn't happen by accident, right? We should be making sure that every community is healthy. But here's what we can do. We can invest in every child. We can create a technology mountain for them to climb. And if we do that, then no one will stop this city. And we'll look back at this time in history and say, we brought all of our kids, my babies, your babies, maybe your grandchildren, my babies, and we brought these kids to a place we never thought was possible for ourselves. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Enjoy the continuation of this day. Thank you, my brother, Lloyd Williams, who I just want to say has evolved Harlem Week and the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce to meet these challenges. We're having a different conversation today about technology than we did 10 years ago when I was borough president. That is a tribute. The Chamber understands you got to change direction, you got to go with the times, and you got to provide the resources. And I'm so glad we could see that. Thank you, Lloyd. I'll see you soon. Thank you.